Good evening, October 23rd, 2023. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin, which is having some fun right now. So I have been looking for another move down. Obviously, that has been invalidated at this point. I said as long as it was below 31K, we're probably still going sub 25, and today that got blown out of the water. So the alternate bullish scenario was very unlikely, and honestly, the structure that the bulls are making is still pretty crappy, honestly. It's really not good. So, for this to actually be a sustained bull run, I still view as unlikely, to be perfectly honest. But does that, that doesn't mean that we can't go higher. Certainly doesn't mean we can't go higher. So let's just take a look at the chart. I'm actually going to go ahead and start from a fresh chart here and just kind of go through bigger picture stuff one more time. So we have here the 2018 low, and we have what I believe is a 1, 2, 3, or I had believed it was a 1, 2, 3. This came down, honestly, a little too low for that to be a proper 4, and then we really haven't begun a nice structure upwards for 5. But this is the bullish case in the macro. Okay, this is what we would be looking at. And let me show you, that's wave 3, that's wave 2. When I say it came down a little bit too low, you don't want to see the fourth wave break the 0.5 fib. And I mean, it tapped it. So, it once again is making things difficult. Do we consider that invalidation, or do we say, yeah, it just tapped it, so it's fine? I don't know. But, the structure for this bull case is a little bit weird anyway, because this is A, B, C within 4 here, and you can see how much longer that C is than A, which is also a bit weird. B went higher than 3, so I was expecting an expanding flat, which really just should have come down, maybe just slightly below A and then up. That would have been a beautiful way to finish off that impulse. But it did go very, very low. So that's kind of weird. We do have 5 waves down, okay, and that can be 5 waves in a C wave. Certainly a possibility. Okay, so I'm just kind of marking the chart up here as we go. So that's how we would look at it in the bullish scenario on the macro, that we're going into wave 5, and target for that, if we are doing it, which again I'm not convinced, but if we were doing this, we'd be looking at a target up here. Basically 130 to 193 is your target for 5th wave. Okay, so assuming for a moment that the bulls are actually able to do something here and they're ready to rock and roll, we still have plenty of profit, plenty of time to go, right? There's lots of room up here. But the bearish way to view this is to say, yeah, that broke the 0.5 fib, which it did, just a little bit, but it did. It broke the 0.5 fib, and therefore, this is not 5 waves down in a C wave, but rather 5 waves down in a new first wave in a bearish move. And unfortunately, we have to take that possibility seriously, that this is 5 waves down in a bearish sense instead. So I'm going to put that in red. It's literally the same 5 waves, but it could be bearish instead. And I've mentioned this in the past. I've gone over this on my other macro videos that I've done. So if that were the case, we would expect to see resistance somewhere, ideally in the 382 to 618 region. We'd be begun to see that resistance right there. Okay, and we're working our way up. You know, we might get up to the golden pocket. That's 39K to 41K, somewhere in there. Below the 764, this is still valid. So that's below 48.5K. This is still valid. And I mean, technically it's not actually invalid until the 886, which is all the way up at 58K. But it would be a big warning. If it got above 48.5K, it'd be a big warning that that bearish scenario is not going to happen. So there's kind of the levels that the bulls would need to break through based on the fib from the top to the bottom. And actually, let me revise that because this would be the top of the third wave is back here, not here. So there we go, 55K. So 47.5 instead of 48.5. Using the proper area there. All right. Then the other problem that I've repeatedly gone over with the bulls and the bullish scenario is that this is clearly 3 waves up. This is an ABC. There's no getting around that. Absolutely no getting around it, which is unfortunate for the bulls because that means the best case scenario for them is that we have a diagonal. And I was trying to give the bulls the benefit of the doubt by saying, all right, let's say that's an ABC up, maybe in a first wave in a diagonal, which means we should come down here for a second wave. And we didn't ever hit it. And that's the area that I was hoping we would hit right there for our second wave. Okay, but we do have, I mean, this is an ABC, sideways ABC. That C wave just didn't quite get down to that level that I wanted to see. But it is a possibility, right, that we have our second wave in this large potential diagonal here as a 1, 2, and then we'd have to see 3, 4, and 5. So to be fair, the way that this is acting right now is consistent with with a third wave. It's very, very strong, but there's still work to do. So let me move this up a degree. There we go. So this would be our bullish scenario. And because it is a diagonal, there's really no extremely clear area to say we should get to for the third, but I would want to see really at least 58.6 for the third, like the 1, 2, 3, 6, if not higher. With the fifth wave, maybe targeting up here, but we would be able to see once we had that third wave in place, we can draw a diagonal then and say, there it is. There's our diagonal, and it would look something like that. Okay, so lots of choppiness, and this is going to move in 3 waves, so we would expect to see something that looks like this. You know, big move up, big move down, big move up. And then we'd probably get some sideways action just like we got here for that 4, and then big moves up again for that wave 5. And the tricky thing here is that we would need to start seeing some extensions probably on that third wave in order to get us up here to this target. Otherwise, we're just going to, you know, we may miss the target if it doesn't start extending. And that's the problem with these diagonals. They're extremely difficult to try to trade. They're going to be very, very choppy, which just makes things really hard to try to plan, you know, what you're going to do. And that's why I'm not in spot positions, right? I sold out of my spot right around here, I believe. It was either here or here, somewhere near 50K. I got out. So, I mean, you know, I'm still up, honestly, at this point. You know, I sold here, and I'm just waiting now, right? Because of all this choppy action, I'm not willing to get into large spot positions and just hold, because at any point this can die. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this just dies at some point. So I'm going low time frame, and I am only trading setups that I see on lower time frames. I'm just not comfortable doing that hold. So, but that's me. You know, you do whatever makes you comfortable. All right, so there we go. There we have it. That is our kind of bullish macro viewpoint here on the daily. So let's go ahead and zoom in now to the hourly and just kind of take a look here and see what's going on. I was looking at this, you know, again, we have clear three-wave moves. This is an ABC right here. I got an ABC down, so I was kind of thinking like maybe we're getting another diagonal, like a diagonal within a diagonal. But I don't know. It's hard to say at this point. But let's just for a moment kind of play with that. Let me get rid of these fibs. If this was a diagonal, I would say there's our ABC up in 1. This is what I put on as our alternate bull scenario previously. So there's 1, there's 2. I was saying 3 needs to get up to at least like 31 to 32. Obviously, we've far surpassed that. So, you know, if there's a top in place, that'd be our 3. Then we get a 4 and a 5. And I really can't say that this is an impulse. It's certainly not impulsive. But is it going to act as a normal diagonal, or is it just going to continue, you know, pushing up? I can't say that with certainty either. But this, if we have a top in place at this point, that's sort of what it would be, what it would look like. And that's probably, honestly, this is probably what we're going to do if we are going to go bullish. And the reason I say that is that would likely be our 5 waves up in the A wave of 3 in this larger diagonal here. So yes, diagonals within diagonals. This would be A, B, and C up for wave 3. Okay, so we would look something like this. ABC over and 4, you know, lots of chop. At some point this is going to top out and just chop sideways. It can, well, it could go sideways or it could come down. I mean, this can come straight down at some point. Come back to 30K, come over, you know, sideways to like 33. It's hard to say exactly what it's going to do, but, you know, rejection at some point in the near future, sideways or down for 4, and then we'd get a nice choppy move up for 5 of A. Hard to say exactly where that's going to go at this point, but somewhere in the 40K area is what we'd be looking at, low to mid 40Ks, if it's going to do this. Okay, and then we would have another big retrace or sideways, you know, something like this, that nasty choppy area we're going to get again. Okay, until we hit, sorry, not the edge of that diagonal, but until we do an ABC, we get that B wave, and then we can do another ABC up to finish off C of 3, or potentially 5 waves to finish C of 3. But lots of times, you know, if we're working on ABCs, it's not going to be clear. Like this C wave right here, not a clear 5-wave structure. So again, difficult to trade. Going to be very, very choppy if it does go up, but that's kind of what I'm looking at here. So as far as strategy goes for me, at this point, I'm flat. I'm a impartial observer. I don't care. Do not care one way or the other what it does. I'm just watching and waiting for an opportunity. What does that opportunity look like? Well, if it gives me a clear ABC, something like this, you know, and it gets near this diagonal trend line, then I can try to buy there, right? That can be a pretty decent long to try to ride up for that 5th wave. As we get towards, you know, the top of this diagonal, that's my take profit zone. Okay, so there's strategy right there, right? Buying in around there, taking profit around there. And then I'm back to flat, and again, observing, don't care what happens. If it goes higher, whoop-de-doo. At some point it's going to come back down. When it does, if it's a clear ABC, I can buy. If not, I just continue observing, right? And we just continue doing that the entire way, right? As this goes up, it'll do an A wave first. I take my profit. As this comes down, if it does a clear ABC, I can long again. And as it goes up, I can take my profit as we approach that zone. Okay, and that is how I'll play it over and over and over again. But I do not care to hold any positions for the long term at this point in time. I just don't trust this. I do not trust this enough. Honestly, I probably won't trust it enough until we get this, and then we get this. You know, we go 60K back down to 40K. Maybe I'll buy some there to ride it up the rest of the way. We'll see. All right. I think that honestly is all I have to say. I don't think we have any evidence quite yet of a top being in place. Yeah, definitely not. No evidence yet of a top being in place. So this may continue to extend. That's certainly a possibility. None of this action is particularly helpful. That's probably our A and B. This has got to be wave 3. So it's possible. It's like 1, 2, could be 3, 4, 5 already done. Could be that 3 just extended there. We still need a 4 and a 5. Not quite sure exactly what's going to happen short term, but if at some point we do get a correction down, which we will, there's always a correction down, I think I'm going to try to just start moving into some scalping. I've got some interesting ideas going forward for some scalping tactics, because we've really failed to establish a useful pattern in the longer term, and I'd like to try to trade some of this volatility a little bit more effectively. So anyway, once we come down, I'll probably try to trade, short a B wave down for a C wave, maybe long there, something like that. We'll see. But for now, we still don't have evidence quite yet of a top, but I imagine that we're going to get that evidence fairly soon here. I can't imagine this extending too much further without a retrace, but you never know. All right, yeah, that's it. That's all I've got to say. I'm sure I will be touching base with you all on Friday, because I'm sure we'll get some more action during this week. So I will talk to you all then. In the meantime, stay safe with all this craziness happening here in the crypto markets. All right, I'll talk to you all Friday.